These ribs are wonderfully different from barbecue. They're a little bit crispy, a little bit sweet, a little bit garlicky, and a lot addictive. Hey everyone, I'm Flo, Dude is behind the camera, and we're all about simple food, simple faith. I love barbecue sauce, but sometimes I just want something different. So today we're making honey garlic ribs, and I was so excited to get $5 off these ribs. It's about, I think about 6 pounds. It's 2 full racks. But you know what? I spent over $600 at Costco. Let me know, what is your most expensive shopping trip to Costco in the comments below. So technically my ribs were only $15, and I'm going to separate each rib because we're going to use the air fryer today to make these. Oh my goodness, this doesn't even fit on my cutting board. I've already removed the silver skin on the back of the ribs. That just helps to let the flavors kind of absorb all over. If you leave the silver skin on, it's edible. It's not like you can't eat it. I just like to remove it. Dude, that's a lot of ribs. Like, if you went to eat this in a restaurant, I don't know how much you would pay for that amount of ribs. We're gonna use a dry rub to kind of mix into the meat to give it some extra flavor. I have a teaspoon of black pepper that I've already ground. I didn't want to use my grinder because, well, I need a teaspoon's worth. So I just put it in my mortar pestle and ground up the whole pepper. And we're gonna add a tablespoon of kosher salt. So that's 3 teaspoons. A tablespoon of paprika. A teaspoon each of garlic powder and onion powder. Give this a stir. And we're going to add that to our ribs. Just give it a toss.
You know, I got to say that after you started using the rub, the ribs had a lot more flavor to them.
Yeah, right? It's just an extra step, but it makes a difference. You don't even have to let it marinate for very long, maybe half an hour or so. If you wanted to, you could do this the night before, and then they'd be extra tasty. All right, setting this aside for about 30 minutes. After the meat has been marinating for about half an hour, I'm going to coat it with some starch to make them crispier in the air fryer. Like normally I would use potato starch, but I couldn't find any in the store. So I'm going to try tapioca starch. Tapioca starch is made from cassava, which is a root vegetable. So I'm hoping that it'll give me the same effect. So I'm going to start with about half a cup. I'm going to put some of the ribs in here and give it a toss. And if you don't have potato starch or tapioca starch, you can always try cornstarch. And if you don't want to use cornstarch or any of the starches, you don't have to. I'm just hoping that'll give it an extra crisp. Just give it a shake. And I've already preheated my air fryer at 375 for about 5 minutes. And I'm just going to get off as much of this starch as possible and just toss them in there. I'm going to try to do about half at a time. Okay, I tried to stagger them a little bit. We are going to toss them halfway through. You'll be cooking this for 20 minutes at 375, and I'm going to give it a good spritz of oil. Kind of make sure that the potato starch or the tapioca starch is wet, and we'll stick it in for 10 minutes and then flip them. And that's just half the ribs. I forgot to mention that I started with half a cup of the starch, but you can add as you go. I hate saying use a full cup because sometimes you don't need a full cup. So just add a little bit more starch each time you're dredging your ribs. While the ribs are cooking, we're going to get our sauce ready. I have this homegrown garlic that is smaller than normal, but it's about 5 cloves of garlic. So I'm going to use all of it. And you can use as little or as much as you like. If you like it really garlicky, you can add more. So juicy. It's going to be potent. All right, that looks good. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, and we're just going to flip these around, making sure that everything gets evenly fried. All right, another 10 minutes. In the last 5 minutes before your ribs are done, get the sauce ready. So I'm going to heat up my wok on medium-low heat. And if you don't have a wok, you can always just do the sauce in a saucepan and put the ribs in a bowl and pour the sauce over to toss it. I'm using the wok to mix it all together because it's, well, a big enough vessel that I can just throw all the ribs in there. Adding a tablespoon of cooking oil. I'm using avocado oil today. You can use canola oil or vegetable oil, just a neutral tasting oil. I'm actually going to turn this down a little bit more because I don't want the garlic to burn. I just want it to kind of cook. So I'm going to toss the garlic in and just let it cook in there for about 30 seconds, and then we're going to turn the heat off. Okay, turning off the heat. Adding a cup of honey. I'm just eyeballing, of course. And half a cup of soy sauce. Make sure it's well combined. Remember, your heat is off, but the wok will be warm enough to just get the honey melted, and then we're just combining it with the soy sauce. And that's it. That's your sauce. Just waiting for the ribs to toss in there. All right, look at that. How delicious does that look? You got like the crispy edges.
Oh yeah.
Good. So yummy. All right, just dump it all in there and toss it around. You can do this with riblets. In my cookbook, Chinese Home Style, I actually have this recipe, but I don't do it in the air fryer. I use the pressure cooker and just put everything under the broiler. And I also use riblets. So if you have riblets, which are just like smaller cuts of rib, those would work really well too. And then, I don't know, it's harder. They're more addictive that way because you're just eating little pieces instead of like giant ribs. This is actually quite a bit. I don't know if I can toss it all. Okay. Oh, do you see all the sauce just dripping over the ribs? So this is why I use a wok. But again, if you can get it into a large mixing bowl, woo! If you can get it into a large mixing bowl, that will work too. All right, I think these are all sufficiently coated. All right, guys, putting it on a serving plate. All right, last one.
That is a mountain, a literal mountain of ribs.
I know, $15, guys. I can't even, and that's Canadian. Or in the US, it might just be $2. Oh. I'm just joking. So don't leave sauce behind. Make sure you drizzle it all over the ribs. All right, guys. Are you all ready for?
Yep.
Guys, I can barely see over this pile of ribs.
Okay.
This rib is calling out to me. Dude, all right. There's not much to talk about. The color is amazing. Aroma is fantastic. And the rub definitely has made its way in there to the overall flavor. And tapioca starch has left, I mean, even with the tossing of the sauce, just a tiny bit, you get that, you detect that micro crunch on the edges. And the sauce, holy moly. The ribs are tender and juicy. With that sauce combined, makes a party in your mouth. You guys got to do this.
Awesome, thanks, dude. This made a lot of ribs, but you don't have to make both racks. You can easily have the recipe, just make one rack, and you can adjust the amount of sweetness by just either more with the honey or less, and adjust the soy sauce accordingly. It's all up to you. For a similar recipe for honey garlic ribs, check it out in my cookbook, Chinese Homestyle.